baby boomers, children of the Cold War, grew up fearing the mushroom cloud that could vaporize an entire continent, maybe even the world. But even without vaporizing us, nukes can instantly disable us big time. Interviewed by Live Science, defense analyst Peter Pry warns you can use a single weapon to collapse the entire North American power grid. Once the electric grid goes down, everything would collapse. Everything depends on electricity, telecommunications, transportation, even water. Pry served on the Congressional EMP Commission, as in electromagnetic pulse, whose mission was to assess the threat of EMP attacks. And I say was because the commission died in 2017. Could the lights go out at any moment? And if so, for how long? And is Uncle Sam prepared? Let's ask the author of A Nation Forsaken, EMP, the Escalating Threat of an American Catastrophe. Available on Audible and Kindle and in hardcover at Amazon.com. He's RT contributor and former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. Michael, the Audible version of that is great. And the day that you and I first met 4 years ago, when I first came to RT America, you mesmerized me off the top of your head in the green room talking about electromagnetic pulse. We finally got around to discussing this on TV. Give our viewers the Reader's Digest version, how electromagnetic pulse happens, and so that they have something else to worry about. What's EMP 101?
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Well, it can be either a natural occurrence from the sun, or it can be a nuclear explosion at the high altitude. Now, electromagnetic pulse is basically a high intensity burst of electromagnetic energy caused by the rapid acceleration of charged particles. And if you have unprotected electronics, this EMP will knock them out. It can fry all of your electronics. Now, let me just add that what is electromagnetic energy? That would include such things as X-rays, microwave, infrared radiation, radio waves, gamma rays. So, just a common radar can knock out electronics, and it's been done. You can put a radar in the back of a van, aim it at cars, which are now all electronic, and block everything, especially on bridges.
Yeah, depicted in that Ocean's 11 movie where they blacked out the Vegas Strip momentarily. And it's scary enough to think that suddenly your car will never start again. But there are bigger problems. Electricity is powering the systems that make water come out of the faucet, et cetera, correct?
Well, yeah, what you're talking about something even more basic. This will affect all of our critical infrastructures: electric power, telecommunications, banking and finance, our petroleum and natural gas pipelines, transportation systems, our food and water delivery, emergency services, as well as space systems itself. So, and this can all happen instantly.
Yeah, the phrase tactical nuclear weapons gives me goosebumps, but it's a real threat. And Michael, to the extent you are at liberty to disclose and describe what you were party to during your years at the Pentagon, how prepared are we, or how prepared can we be in the case of a big bang?
Well, we're not prepared. We should be prepared. And I think it's one of our derelictions of duty and obligations to protect the safety of the country that all administrations have really failed on so far. What we need is a person at the National Security Council level who will coordinate all federal, state, and local activities to ensure that local communities are prepared in the event that there is an EMP that will knock out all of your electronics, all of your communications, everything, so that you have an idea of where to report to, have food that's stored, have medicine that's stored, and water. Basics, very real basics.
Yeah, this really
right now
does
we don't have any of that.
Right,
and I would
this
add
really
that the
does point
Pentagon
to
the Pentagon is concerned about EMP to the point that it is now recognizing that EMP can affect weapon systems. But they also rely 90% on local grids, power grids in the United States, which are not protected.
Yep. Yeah, and
as
you
Peter says,
mentioned the financial. Yeah.
As Peter Price says, if your grids are knocked out, that can affect all of our military on CONUS, on the mainland here.
Well, that's chilling enough. You mentioned the financial system, and I have a new appreciation for keeping paper copies of things with this threat. We're talking electromagnetic pulse with longtime former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. And don't try this at home.
Today, I want to make an EMP, or electromagnetic pulse device. And that's why I bought one of these super high voltage power generator modules. Let's give it a try and see how it works. Wow!
But seriously, Michael, what about Iranian or North Korean nukes? We've got gun nuts shooting up supermarkets and elsewhere lately. Is EMP a suitcase-sized threat that could put some militia wacko in action?
Yeah, that's one of the concerns that are lone wolves. And they can be made. They can be suitcase-sized. They can be very very focused, or they can be in a wider area. As I mentioned, you can get a surplus radar system, for example, and point it even at buildings where there might be computers and knock them out. Boeing has been experimenting with this on drones. They'll have a drone with that EMP capability, and it can knock out all the computers in a building if it's not protected. All you need to do, though, is harden all of your electronics, all of your microchips. But that's expensive. But given all the trillions that Joe Biden wants to spend, I think we could spend maybe no more than $3 to $4 billion to ensure that all of this is done nationwide. But that's not even in the cards. Yet we have a very vulnerable grid system.
And that's not in this infrastructure package that's spending a couple of trillion?
Well, no.
That's kind of scary.
There's talk of working on the grid, but our grid at best is jury-rigged. Plus, we have 3 separate grids. And 70% of the U.S. population lives off the eastern grid. And now, if a North Korean satellite, which might be a nuclear weapon, is orbiting around, and it explodes at 300 miles up, and it can be positioned in such a way that it's over the East Coast, U.S. East Coast, 70% of the population will be affected. And just on the natural disorder from the sun, NASA has predicted that 90% of the U.S. population in the first year would die.
Wow. Dystopia. Michael, I'm down to 1 minute, so I'm going to frustrate you by asking for the super short answer on this. But while I have you, deadline to withdraw from Afghanistan. Prediction?
It's not going to happen. There's not going to be any troop withdrawal in the near term because given the politics of what happened, the Taliban will just wait us out. Given that deadline, the Taliban knows they don't have to do anything. They know that we'll leave, and then they'll just come in and create more havoc. And even if the Taliban comes in and deals with the government there, it's only controlling about 50% of the country. That doesn't even talk about the other tribes and groups like the Northern Alliance that may want to have a participation in the government of some kind. And I think if we moved out entirely, and if NATO moved out entirely, then you would have everything would devolve into a civil war once again.
Right. Well, hey, you break, you buy. Getting in was easy. Getting out's going to be the trick. Former Pentagon official and RT contributor Michael Maloof, thank you as always for stepping into the big picture. Our RT mantra, question more, implies a wariness of government regulation, but we should also question deregulation run amok. And here's an example. For most of its 100-year history, broadcast radio thrived because stations were locally owned, the personalities and programming were local, and then came the Telecommunications Act of 1996, sold to Congress as an act to promote competition and reduce regulation in order to secure lower prices and higher quality services for telecommunications consumers and encourage the rapid deployment of new telecommunications technologies. What happened next? The FCC removed the limits on how many radio stations any one corporation could own. Wall Street pigged out. Mom and pop, independent local station owners who had no intention of selling their businesses did, because Wall Street came along and offered them much more than the radio station was worth. So mom and pop are down in West Palm, and the big corporations are burning the furniture to keep the lights on. The firings continue. It's hard to find local news on AM radio, and if you're listening to FM, and the disc jockey on the music station is mispronouncing street names or the names of local cities or towns, it's because you're listening to a robot. That disc jockey pretending to be here is back at the mothership. And now, iHeartRadio, the biggest station owner, whose corporate subsidiary also owns the biggest radio talk show, is not only not local from noon to 3 Eastern, they require their stations to keep rerunning shows by someone who died 2 months ago. No wonder that podcasting is having such a boom. It's people power media. And that is the big picture. We'll be back again next week, same time with another show. If you want to set your DVR, thank you in advance. We're on DirecTV channel 321 on the Dish 280. RT America streams live at youtube.com/RT America. And all of our shows are at youtube.com/TheBigPictureRT. And all of the above and much, much more is on our portable TV app, thus on any device, on your desktop, pocket, purse, or anywhere. You can download it free in Google Play or the App Store or at portable.tv. I'm Holland Cook. Question more.